Hello everyone, welcome back to the ObaNutrition channel. In a previous video, I shared about the natural ways to cure diarrhea. Now, if you have not watched that video, you can actually search for it on my YouTube channel, that is the ObaNutrition channel, to be able to find it and learn something new today. However, in today's video, I want to share about the causes of diarrhea, especially for children under the age of 5. The first cause of it is usually poor hygiene. This includes the hygiene around your breast, as well as the feeding utensils that you are actually using. So, as a mother, it is very essential to always not use the same breastfeeding cloth that you are using the previous day and ensure it is washed very well. This prevents the accumulation of bacteria around the breastfeeding cloth, especially if you're having milk leaking on it. Furthermore, it is essential for you as a mother to shower every day. This ensures that there is no dirt accumulating around your breast, which the child can actually suck and eventually cause diarrhea. The other aspect is about the feeding utensils that you are utilizing. Now, for the feeding utensils, it is usually not advised for you to use the teat bottles because bacteria can actually accumulate on the end of those teat bottles, especially if you're not washing them very well. So if this bacteria accumulates around those teeth, it means that the child will suck them and eventually have diarrhea. So therefore, just use the normal cups instead of the teat bottles whenever you are feeding your child. The other cause of diarrhea among children is if the mother has a breast wound or even a breast infection. This can include things like mastitis or even a wound developing on the breast. So if this is not treated, the child can get infected through that breast and eventually have diarrhea. The other aspect causing diarrhea is if the mother was HIV infected and has not provided the child with prophylaxis to prevent the spread of it. So if a mother doesn't adhere to the instructions of the doctor to give this child prophylaxis, there's a higher likelihood that the child will eventually have opportunistic infections like diarrhea developing because of failure to adhere to HIV prophylaxis treatment of the infant. The other cause of it is usually poor storage of expressed breast milk. Now, for the mothers who are doing breast milk expression, if you're not storing that breast milk very well, it means that we can have pathogens developing on it. These pathogens can eventually cause the child to be infected and have diarrhea. So whenever you want to store this milk, you can always store it on a fridge, and if you do not have a fridge, that milk should always be consumed within 8 hours after expression. This prevents the development of pathogens. And when you want to feed that child, if in case you had stored it in the fridge, you can actually store some in the fridge and others in the freezer for the long-term use. So for those which are in the freezer, you first bring them to the fridge and then you warm that milk on a sufuria that has warm water. So you just dip that milk bottle on that sufuria and it will get warm and the child can be able to consume it at room temperature. The other aspect that can cause diarrhea among children is if the mother has done mixed feeding or replacement feeding. So if the mother is doing mixed feeding, especially and with feeds that the child has not reached the age of, so when you're talking about mixed feeding, first of all, it means that this child should be doing exclusive breastfeeding, but the mother has gone against it and has done mixed feeding. Now, mixed feeding should not be done at all because we are supposed to give time for the digestive system of the child to actually develop to reach a stage at which it can be able to digest other foods besides the mother's breast milk. Now, if this thing happens, it means that the digestive system of the infant is actually underdeveloped. Therefore, the child will eventually have food intolerances, which will present as diarrhea or even at times as vomiting or even constipation, bloating, and what have you. So therefore, you are supposed to ensure that you are doing exclusively breastfeeding for the 6 months that a child is born, after a child is born, that is. The other thing about replacement feeding. This is where the mother decides to replace the breast milk with a commercial feed such as naan. Now, there are times at which naan is advocated and there are times at which is not advocated. So if a mother is able to produce breast milk, infant formulas are not always advocated for because they do not give wholesome nutrition and they are not likely not to prevent development of gastrointestinal disorders. That means if you are able to produce breast milk, replacement feeding with things such as infant formulas or even cow's milk or goat milk should not be done at all. Otherwise, this can cause development of these gastrointestinal disorders, which will eventually cause diarrhea that can even lead to mortality. The other aspect that can cause your child to also develop diarrhea constantly is feeding them foods that are very rich in gluten. Now, gluten is a type of protein that is usually found in wheat, and this usually affects mostly children who are having even mental disorders. So gluten itself is very much known to cause a lot of irritable bowel syndrome. Now, if you find that your child is always constantly having inexplicable diarrhea and also is feeding higher amounts of chapatis, pizza, or even mandazis, it means that the greatest contributing factor is this anti-nutrient called gluten. Therefore, you have to start weaning your child off it in order to control the diarrhea. Now, last but not least, it means that you have to consider all these factors as a whole, as a package, in order to ensure that your child doesn't have the condition worsening. So thank you everyone for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one.